Smasho here, and welcome to the Daily Space Weather, a regular feature here at the Smash News Network, least busted name of news. And thanks for tuning in, by the way, everybody. Congratulations on realizing that the channel exists. This is yesterday plus today in 304 angstroms to show you a massive prominence up here around sunspot 3112. Huge filaments up here around the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. Likelihood of coronal mass ejection is very high. A reduction here in solar activity as sunspots set in the northwest. We did also have an M-class flare happen while we were doing show prep. There you can see those sunspots setting on our intensity gram. These groups in the northeast, mostly stable here over the past 24, maybe a little bit of degradation just in the past few hours. And there is colorized magnetogram from SDO. And let's talk volcanoes. What's erupting, you ask? Well, we tell. Ibico, producing a 7,000-foot ash plume. Alade, 14,000-foot ash plume. Alade now back on the list as it explodes. Suwanosejima also exploding, flight level 060. Taal in the Philippines produced a 2,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Please do not pole vault the caldera. Fuego exploding, flight level 150 over Guatemala. It's a 15,000-foot ash plume from Fuego. Nevado del Ruiz exploding in Colombia, flight level 210. Sangre exploding in Ecuador along with Revenador. 23,000-foot ash plume over Sangre, 15,000-foot ash plume over Revenador. And headed farther south to Sabancaya in Peru. 24,000-foot ash plume as Sabancaya explodes. Also, Nevados de Chilean exploding in central Chile. Flight level 120. It's a 12,000-foot ash plume. There was one significant earthquake over the past 24 hours. We'll get to it first, a 90-day bar graph. That is the last 90 days in convenient bar graph form there from volcano discovery. So there's the largest quake of the past 24. It occurred in Papua New Guinea. Late last night, Universal Time. There is the location of that near Kokopo. Kokopo? Kokopo. Yes, at 2220 was that 6.4 magnitude quake. And let's scroll up the list here. Besides that, no large quakes. There was a 5.1 on New Zealand. Besides that, things pretty seismically calm here. And we're looking at the last 24 hours. And thanks for leaving comments. One Audio and Tin Man 1057. Good morning to you as well. And let's get back to space. So here's the last 24 hours in 335 angstroms. The last 48 hours. Did I say 24? The last 48 hours. It's one of our SDO 48-hour movies. And we'll get to flaring and so on here momentarily. Radio flux has come all the way down to 130 solar flux units. There is the 1-year graph of that. A big dip in the radio flux as big sunspots set in the northwest. We did see a period of geomagnetic unrest which will end shortly, most likely. We saw a rather sudden increase in the magnetic fields and a negative BZ. We'll get to that also. Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard not predicting anything of the sort. That's NOAA's forecast. Geomagnetic calm conditions are in the NOAA forecast. So here's Earth's magnetic moment from space. We did see a rapid increase here in the pressure. Likely a bunch of aurora sparked here around the world if people were ready for it. You may have gotten some great imagery of that. Follow us on Twitter. We'll share auroral imagery over there. And that refresh, we're going to let that play through in its entirety to have a complete 4-hour run. One audio asks, is that a flare that's happening? Yes, an M-class flare just occurred. We'll get to it. First, Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. So this will show you the most likely places for aurora. Also pipeline, rail line, and electrical grid induction, most likely in those bright red areas. That's geospace delta B, changes to Earth's B field. Modeled by the Space Weather Modeling Framework, the units shown here are nanotesla magnetic flux density. It's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. So here you go, KP currently at 4.33. It's going to drop, folks. That'll just be a brief period of geomagnetic unrest there. And the reason I say it'll drop is because the BZ has just gone into positive territory. So we still see a pretty strong field here. What caused the geomagnetic unrest was this sudden field change. If you look at that top bar there, it says 16, negative 14. That's 16 nanotesla for the total field strength, and a negative BZ of 14. Negative 14 for the BZ there. As you can see, that it's gone back into positive. We'll go back to a KP2 probably here. Pretty much right away. It looks like a weak coronal hole wind stream. We did see that density increase to about 24 protons per cubic centimeter. Now maybe 27, something like that. About 27 protons per cubic centimeter. Not expecting very much from that coronal hole wind stream there. Current conditions are 393 kilometers a second for the solar wind speed. Solar wind density about 11.5 protons per cubic centimeter. There are the GOES magnetometers, and the GOES satellites there had to make some maneuvers to maintain their geosynchronous near equatorial orbits. Those arcjet moments are when their thrusters are turned on. And the plasma from the thrusters can affect the magnetometer reading. So let's take a look at the heliospheric current sheet. The North Pole current sheet is on its way. We may see indeed a further degradation of those sunspots in the northeast. That would be my guess, based on understanding the data after watching it for a few years. Anyway, also the north solar polar field migration appears to be commencing here. You can see that green area slowly shrinking there. That is the north solar polar field leaving the north heliographic pole, as it's a little behind the south pole in its field migration process. So lots of fireworks to come for solar cycle 25. Here is your line of sight field plot. Sun's B field shown here in blue. Polar fields in red and green. And let's move to coronal holes. What evil lurks in the depths of coronal holes? High-speed wind streams, that's what. High-speed streams of protons. And let's bring up some imagery here in 211 angstroms. While that loads, let's pause for station identification. Congratulations, you have found the Smash News Network least busted name in news, where we cite fact after fact. Zero fraud, zero nonsense, and zero propaganda. So there's the 211 angstroms wavelength. And not a lot of features, really, right now in the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk. That's yesterday plus today. major sunspots setting in the northwest. So speaking of sunspots, that's what we're doing next. Likelihood of flares is about to drop here after the plasma loops associated with sunspot 3112 and 3116 move out of sight. There still is a rather high probability for additional M or even possibly X-class flares here, but that will drop as those loopy plasmas leave the area. So there's yesterday plus today on the SDO intensity gram. And let's zoom in. So a little bit of shrinkage happening here on these new sunspots up here. Those are known as 3121. Looks like they've degraded a little bit. They may continue to degrade. That would be my forecast based on the magnetometer, the Gong 2 data rather. And let's bring up the colorized magnetogram plus 171 angstroms wavelength. Always a classic. Next we'll move to solar flares. But first the proton flux, which remains flatlined here. So despite some flaring activity there, no relativistic particles showing up yet. Take a moment to visit our links, by the way, if you want to support the channel. Check us out on our homepage at smashomash.com. Thanks to everybody who's visited smashomash.com. In 2018, a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison for a crime we didn't commit. We promptly escaped a maximum security social media stockade to the internet underground where we survive as producers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can indeed find the content, maybe you can hire the Smash team. In fact, you certainly can. There's even a bronze level that's free if you want to support the channel. Join at the silver or gold level. Become an executive producer of the content. Ensure that these videos will continue to exist, remain publicly visible, and free for all to view. One of the links you can find on our homepage is a link to SureMed, which is not insurance. It's an association membership with the American Better Health Organization, focused on improving the health of its members. It does give you access to insurance as well. Those are group insurances only available to members of SureMed, and a base membership alone gives you access to all kinds of discounts. The pharmacy discounts are fantastic. Virtual veterinarians are included as well. Discounts on dental, vision, vitamins, and labs. And it's worth it just for the doctors by phone, in my opinion, because going to a physical doctor is so 2019. So visit the links, improve your health by becoming a member of SureMed. The perks are definitely worth it. I use it regularly myself. Once again, if you want to support the channel, become a member of the Smash team, the gold and silver, to our gold and silver members. Thanks for supporting the content. The best value is the gold annual paid-up subscription. It includes complimentary merch. It's almost like getting 4 months of a gold membership for free. Smashomash.com/SmashTeam. If you visit the links to our Redbubble shop, you'll find our products listed in order of best selling. And one of those products, the best selling, contains words that shall not be mentioned in this video. Today's featured product is Mensa. It's up to you to make Earth not suck again, not giant bureaucracies that can't get out of their own way. And, by the way, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996 did not evaporate in the year 2020. It still exists. So Mensa, make Earth not suck again. Don't forget, folks, making America not suck again is part of making Earth not suck again. Because America will continue to lead the way in various different ways. Sorry, civilization's not collapsing, as much as many people would prefer that it does. Think global and act local in your process of making Earth not suck again. Start a conversation with some of our well-crafted products here. Links on the homepage at smashomash.com. Welcome to the Neo Renaissance. Links below the video as well. Thanks to everybody who's picked up merch. This is our second bestseller. Make Earth Not Suck Again. It's not a political slogan, but it is up to you. Press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content on YouTube. Tell your friends and foes about us. We don't believe that we're promoted by the platform. And thanks to our YouTube viewers for putting up with the pathetic and putrid censorship of big tech. It is truly ridiculous as zombie corporations self-destruct. Dear big tech, you can't break the internet. However, the internet can break you. So perhaps stop misleading investors and, do your own job. Viewers, do your own job. Press like, press share, press subscribe. Leave us a comment. Tell us how you found the channel. Once again, congratulations on doing so. So here's our latest flare. Peak flux just happened at 9:50 Universal Time. Looks like it's coming down here. A bit of a long duration solar flare at the moment. We'll see how that pans out. And we've paused here around that moment. Here's 9:35 Universal Time, and let's make sure we have the most up-to-date imagery here. We'll show 94 plus 131 angstroms. That is yesterday plus today. Right at the end, you'll see that flare happen. There is still quite a high likelihood of large flares here for at least the first half of the day. There is a lot of plasma suspended out there yet by those magnetic fields, so we could still see large flares. Don't rule it out yet. Next, we've got a star chart. If you're up before dawn, you might see Mercury rising ahead of the sun. At the moment, we've got Mars and the Moon up there high on the ecliptic. That's what's going on over Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. If you want to see what's going on over your head, check out in-the-sky.org. Put in your zip code or your city, and it will put up your star chart. This one is the all-sky chart, but there are various different maps that you can view. Here's our solar system forecast. We show it daily on the Space Weather. Here's where things are now. Let's advance it 1 week. Here's where things will be in 7 days. Earth on its way to the lonely side of the sun, chasing Mercury and Venus. Next, we'll look at some coronagraphs. We do see some CMEs, but they do not appear to be earthly directed. I think they're on the far side of the sun. That's yesterday. And here's today. That's only 23 frames. Let's switch to the stereo A coronagraph, located here at Lagrange 5. And the Soho-Lascaux C3 located here at Lagrange 1. Great view of Venus there on the Soho-Lascaux C3. And since Earth would be off in this direction from stereo A, I'm not seeing any ejecta headed in Earth's direction. There is some CME activity on the far side of the sun, though, which is, I think, what we were seeing on those other coronagraphs. I don't see any earthly directed CME activity, do you? We do see some CME activity. Here's the last 24 hours from Soho-Lascaux C2 and C3. I think those are all far side CMEs. Here's a slightly zoomed in view. Likelihood of coronal mass ejections remains very high, folks. We've got a massive number of filaments. A massive number of massive filaments. So here's Learmonth, Australia's ground-based hydrogen alpha telescope. And check out the size of these filaments. Huge filament down here at the South Pole. Filaments, filaments, filaments. Lots of filaments. Likelihood of coronal mass ejections near 100%. Don't be surprised when we see more CMEs. Remember, folks, sunspots and solar flares are not required for CMEs. They happen regularly without either of those features. Continuing on to the GOES 16 SUVI. This is the last approximately 2.5 hours. Still lots of plasma suspended there around sunspots 3112 and 3116. Here's 171 angstroms yesterday plus today. As it's time to move to the bonus features segment. So we do see some satellite charging hazards here, some significant surface charging hazards caused by low energy electrons on the surface of satellites here around the Caribbean, northern South America, and the eastern Atlantic. Electron flux has crashed. Finally, a bit of a dip there in the electron flux following a lengthy electron storm there. That's a 7-day chart. Here is the 3-day, which we normally show. And levels expected to drop here. I would tend to agree with this green box. That's NOAA's forecast for the electron flux. The yellow diamonds are the observation. There's the 1-year chart from Solon.info to put that in context. And next we'll show the F ionosphere layer, which is, by the way, where the GOES 16 and GOES 17 measure the electron flux from their geosynchronous orbits. And we are seeing massive anomalies once again in the ionosphere. So huge anomalies still happening. We've been documenting this for the last week or two, a couple of weeks. And here's the anomalygram. So you'll see lots of rapid swings here from high to low frequency anomaly. Some continuing oddities there in the equatorial Indian Ocean. So quite a bit of stuff going on there in the bridge between Earth and space. That's about 300 kilometers of altitude, that slice of the atmosphere. Should we be expecting a major earthquake in the African Rift Zone? Not sure, as we've been unable to forecast any earthquakes from this data so far. Not so sure that it's able to be done at these resolutions, but there's the latest image, 10:15 Universal Time ionogram and 10:15 Universal Time anomalygram. Lots of high-frequency anomalies at the moment. We'll also show the total electron content. It's the free electrons in between your GPS satellite and your GPS handset. That satellite is located about 12.5 thousand miles of altitude, 12,500 miles, 12,500 miles of altitude. The inner portion of the outer Van Allen belt all the way down to your handset contains lots of free electrons, especially around the equator at noon. And at the moment, we're having huge GPS errors. Kind of out of place here. So massive GPS errors happening here well away from the equator at noontime. You can see GPS errors likely of thousands of miles over most of the North American continent there, including the U.S. Let that play through one more time. Lots of electrons kind of out of place. And that is a typical thing we see with coronal hole high-speed wind streams. Next, we've got the latest intensitygram. and the latest magnetogram. Once again, it looks like this sunspot group is degrading. It looks weaker than it did just when we did show prep. And of course, these groups over here are setting. Right now, solar activity kind of low. How about one more series of images before we move to meteorology? This is 304, 211, and 171 angstroms. And thanks for leaving a comment, Mike Bordages. So it's time to move to meteorology. And there's our nullschool.net auroral imagery. Possibility of some aurora visible there, the Aurora Australis from perhaps southern New Zealand, maybe Tasmania, able to see some aurora there. And northern hemisphere, some aurora likely there over Alaska, parts of northern Canada, Siberia, etc. Here are the surface winds for the land from under. I mean from under the equator. Here are the jet streams of this side of the planet. Some huge bends there in the Southern Ocean around New Zealand. Here are the jet streams of the Western world. We've got a powerful low here, right around Lake Superior. See that counterclockwise rotation there? An indication of an upper level low. And here are the surface winds for the Americas. Surface winds for the central world. Jet streams for the central world. And here is the cloud cover for the Americas. That's clouds and fog, 3.9 nanometer infrared radiation. From the NASA GOES Interactive Weather Satellite Suite. And for all of you folks out there who think the Earth is flat, we hope that you're trolling and that you're joking and you don't really believe that. We challenge you to come up with a theory that plausibly explains both day-night cycles and the seasons. It's low-hanging fruit, arguing with people who think that the Earth is flat or claim they think the Earth is flat. It's pretty ridiculous. Here's your weather.gov map. We do have some flood watches there. If your county's lit, click your county. For example, here's a huge county. Let's click it just to show it. There you go. You click that, and there you go. Localized heavy rain forecasted for those areas. It's weather.gov. So we're going to bring up some forecasts here. We're going to show you pressure and precipitation as it's snowing in Minnesota. Exciting stuff. Please leave my screen. Thank you. So this is the 72-hour GFS forecast for pressure and precipitation. It's like a double whammy snowstorm there for parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin. Also Michigan expecting some snow and wintry mix, some rain. I was going to show another forecast. bring up one more forecast here. Total positive snow depth change for the next 72 hours. You may be interested in how much snow they're going to get. Let's find out. So there's a GFS 72-hour total accumulated snow depth change. And it looks like it's only going to be about 2 inches there. And let's continue on. Here's your pressure map, by the way, from Windy.com's great mobile app. And let's check the European forecast for snow depth. So there's the current snow depth map. Let's advance that 72 hours. Here's where things will be in 72 hours. It looks like a little bit more snow forecasted there for the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and northern Wisconsin. As many as about 4 inches, it looks like, are forecasted for there. Let's just zoom in a little bit and make sure. European forecasting as much as 6 inches of snow. So there you go, near the Wisconsin-Michigan border. And let's continue on. Here's your NASA GOES lightning mapper. We'll zoom back out to where we normally view it. And let's check some real-time lightning maps. No terrestrial strikes in the U.S., according to lightningmaps.org. We had a single lightning bolt out here in the Pacific Ocean. There's the thunderclap, propagating to be heard probably by nobody. Next, U.S. Doppler Radar. As we reach the end of this video, that's vertical motion of water droplets in the air column based on ground-based Doppler radar systems. Here is clouds and fog. Once again, 3.9 nanometer radiation map from the NASA GOES Interactive Weather Satellite Suite. See that counterclockwise rotation happening there, centered on Lake Superior. And there is the water vapor map to finish things up. Looks like clear skies are coming to most of the eastern portion of the U.S. Here's your recap U.S. Doppler radar map. Clouds and fog. And once again, water vapor. Thanks for tuning in to the Smash News Network, Least Busted Name in News. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back. Opinions expressed in this video are not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, Least Busted Name in News.